Hey guys, welcome back! Vodafone Rally Portugal 2024 was just a couple weeks ago, and I was curious to know if I've managed to play every WRC inspired video game that featured my country's amazing event, that was even considered the best rally in the world for at least 5 times. And feel free to correct me if there are others that I didn't include in this list. So let's dig in. Carlos Sainz World Rally Championship was created in Spain by Ziggurat, formerly known as Made in Spain, and also responsible for the amazing and unique Paris-Dakar from 1988. So Carlos Sainz in particular was released 2 years later by 1990 for the MSX, for the Amstrad CPC, for the ZX Spectrum and for MS-DOS based PCs. That is the version you're seeing here. It ended up being developed by Arcadia under the watching eye of Ziggurat, who at the time were occupied with Cito Pons 500cc and had the precious involvement of Carlos Sainz himself and Luis Moya, his navigator, mainly in what car and track designs were concerned. The idea of creating an accurate rally simulator came from motorsports being a hobby among Ziggurat staff, with the programmers finding rally as a spectacular discipline, so they hired Sainz, who had yet to become a world champion at the time. Conversions for Amiga and Atari ST were planned but never released. After its launch, Ziggurat was contacted by Gaelco to work on an arcade game based on the World Rally Championship featuring Sainz before it changed teams from Toyota to Lancia near the end of development, being ultimately reworked and released in 1993 as the amazing World Rally that I played so freaking much, but sadly didn't include Portugal. Jumping right into 1999 and over a ton of rally games that came in between, we saw the release of V-Rally 2 that had the inclusion of Portugal as one of its main locations. Because this form of motorsport wasn't that popular in the United States, they changed the title of the PlayStation release to Need for Speed V-Rally 2 and for the Dreamcast, Test Drive V-Rally. Did it sell on that region because of that marketing stunt? Not at all. In Europe though, it was huge. Over 80 original tracks are present, which represent all of the rallies of the 1999 season, including Greece and Safari, and the development team was inspired by previous racing classics like Outrun, F1 GP by Geoff Crammond, and Rally Masters that I truly enjoyed because of how the cars handle on the track. By then, representation of rally tracks based in the FIA World Rally Championship were purely fictional. There wasn't yet some sort of licensing deal between the developers of these games and the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, but that was just a couple of years away, with the arrival of the first game in a highly popular series from Evolution Studios, again popular but in Europe. WRC, or World Rally Championship as it was officially known, was released exclusively for the PlayStation 2 in late 2001 in Europe and in early 2002 in the United States and Japan. It was in fact the only game from the whole franchise to witness a release in US soil. Americans still weren't keen on truly appreciate rally racing. Probably the arrival of Ken Block at the sport managed to capture their attention, which occurred in 2005 for national events, and 5 years later, by 2010, he had his debut in the WRC with his Ford Focus RS. And everyone recalls his huge crash in 2011 during that year's shakedown in the Portuguese event. Back to that first Evolution Studios game, it was a pretty good rally game, despite being the worst in the series, but that only shows the quality of Evolution Studios' WRC franchise. Sadly, this first one was the only to feature the Portuguese rally, because Portugal was absent from the championship from 2002 till 2006 and replaced by Germany instead. Because of that, WRC2 Extreme from 2002, WRC3 from 2003, WRC4 from 2004 and WRC Rally Evolved from 2005 all missed Rally Portugal. As a fun fact, 2001's Rally Portugal was run under heavy rain, but I don't believe that was the exclusion factor. From 2006 until 2009, the WRC license remained dormant. So along came the Italian publisher Black Bean Games that signed a 4-year licensing contract with the FIA, bringing in late 2010, and from developer Milestone, WRC FIA World Rally Championship for Windows, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and even the 3DS. Sadly, all rally games enthusiasts got really miserable, because this first WRC multi-platform game in years, with the compliments from Milestone, wasn't that good, despite having a greater sense and feel of a simulation rather than that more arcade-ish approach present in the offerings I mentioned previously. As for Rally Portugal, it changed from those iconic locations in the north of the country to the Algarve, automatically reducing the amount of people spectating the event. The Algarve tracks weren't that exciting, to be honest, despite having Cannonblock to play around with and try to do some Gymkhana style of stunts on Algarve Stadium. Milestone tried to enhance its WRC licensed game and released in October of 2011, and for Windows, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, WRC2 that featured improved details, visuals, new modes, a rally academy and a simpler handling model that wasn't as demanding as in its previous installment. The problem was that the tracks were exactly the same from last year's game. This now all started to transmit the feeling we had when a new FIFA or Pro Evolution Soccer game came out. The same thing all over again, only with significant changes to the menus, liveries, teams and a few new locations that year after year would be allowed by the FIA to also have their chance in the championship. This year we saw the entrance of Acropolis and Australia and said goodbye to Bulgaria and Japan. Rally Portugal stayed in the Algarve region and ran over the same stages we saw in the previous WRC game. The difference was that it was more fun to drive, not as serious as in WRC1. At least, that was how I felt back in the day and now, after revisiting all these games over 10 years later. For 2012 and for WRC3, car models were designed by Big Moon Interactive Studios, later responsible for Dakar 18, and by 2019 rebranded to Sabre Interactive Porto, who developed Dakar Desert Rally. Prior to these two singular games, the Portuguese studio was usually subcontracted by other studios to do specific work for video games, and this proved to be truly rewarding and groundbreaking, which allowed them to start making their own AAA games. And what a better start than with a topic that all other developers never had the guts and balls to tackle the way that Big Moon did, with a full-on navigation simulation based on roadbooks, just like the real deal. Sadly, not everyone understood that concept and what to do, mainly on Dakar 18, and after playing the tutorial in first stage, simply gave up. Dakar 18 and Dakar Desert Rally are true gems and among my favorite games ever made. But back to WRC3, the major update was probably the return of Rally Monte Carlo and a brand new Road to Glory mode that featured other type of events apart from just rallying your way through a championship. As for Rally Portugal, all the same stages, same feeling. Besides Windows, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, it was also available on the Vita, just like the next entry in the series. So, jumping right to WRC4, it was the last one coming from the Italian developer. It was released in October of 2013 in Europe and by July of the following year in other regions like North America and Japan. The rally calendar was practically the same, with only the usual annual switch from New Zealand to Australia. Also, for the first time in the WRC series, the game features changes in lighting, like sunrise, daylight and sunset. It was a quite sad depart from the series by Milestone, but it wasn't the greatest debut either for French Kiloton, the next developer in line to continue to bring WRC licensed video games to rally fans. But prior to that, WRC Power Slide came out, an arcade spin-off with an angled top-down view, also from Milestone, exclusively available on digital stores like Steam, PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade. In the meantime, back in 2016, the game was delisted from all those stores. It carried the official license for the cars, drivers and courses, and focused entirely on an arcade rally experience with multiple cars on the track simultaneously that would bump into each other, a damage model with only visual effects, and even power-ups. But I would always turn off all that weird stuff, and what I truly missed were the cool driver space notes. Each rally has 3 stages to compete in, so that the player could unlock other rallies, stages, teams, drivers and vehicles from 3 different classes. WRC5 was in the making for 2 years and continued to have the precious help from Portuguese studio Big Moon for the car models and got released for 2 generations of consoles. As you can imagine, it ended up as a mixed bag in all respects. Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Windows, PlayStation 4, Xbox One and the Vita, all these systems had this 2015 WRC licensed game. Even so, and I'm talking specifically about the PlayStation 4 version, that was the one I got, cause it came with my console as a bundled game, it looked somewhat rough on its surface and felt raw and unfinished while blasting through these landscapes. But, and as from where I'm standing, that wasn't a bad thing. Rally racing on off-road surfaces have to feel that way, raw, rough, hard, bumpy, stiff, etc. I truly enjoyed it for that. The press and most gamers didn't share that same opinion. As for Rally Portugal, it finally returned to the north of the country, its original home prior to its removal from the calendar back in 2002. FAF would again receive all those spectators with arms wide open. WRC6 from 2016 saw a release exclusively focused on the current gen systems PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC. Portuguese stages were exactly the same as in the previous entry in the series. As for gameplay, it went downhill for this one, and it was complete garbage to be honest. But again, the press didn't agree, said that it was better than WRC5. Besides that, WRC6 had to compete against Dirt Rally that was in early access on Steam since March of 2015, with a full and final release arriving in December of that year. Console players would have to wait until April of 2016, so by the time WRC6 came out, everyone was playing Dirt Rally and not WRC5, so Kiloton had to do something about it, but as for WRC6, it was too late. WRC7 was an enormous step forward in relation to the previous installment. It felt that an entirely new WRC series had begun all over again, and from a new developer. And besides competing against Dirt Rally, they now have also Dirt 4 included in the mix. Despite all that, and to be honest, I truly enjoyed WRC7 and prefer it to Dirt 4 every day of the week. As for Dirt Rally, it is in a totally different league, and what's really missing in that one is a full WRC calendar. But again, let me remind you that the WRC license can only be in the hands of one developer, and that developer is Kiloton and publisher Big Ben Interactive, who are legally obliged to respect a signed agreement with the FIA still valid until 2022. WRC7 came in September of 2017 and was truly enjoyable and a seriously challenging rally title, and the improvements over WRC6 shined through right when we boot the game. It's not the most welcoming game for newcomers, I can tell you that, and even experienced racers will find some of the rougher stages tricky, what is incredibly awesome. It even won the award for Best Sports Game at the 2017 Ping Awards, go figure! Stages are gorgeous to look at, but we simply can't stop to smell the roses. We have to get going to grab those much desired points for the championship. So with that winning spirit, Kiloton took 2 years to develop its next entry in the series, returning from its break, revitalized and refreshed. WRC8 came in September of 2019, and even the Nintendo Switch got its own version. That was a waste of time and resources, to be honest. It features this time around dynamic weather and an entirely redesigned career mode, reminiscent of Codemasters Formula 1 series. It also received major improvements to both the game's physics and graphics, and also saw the addition of new classic cars. Much like in Codemasters' Dirt series of games, Portuguese stages look as beautiful as never before, and it's a joy to blast through these mountain ranges, and this got me hyped for next year's installment. So WRC 9 came along in September of 2020, now published by Nacon, formerly known as Big Ben Interactive, and to this date remains as one of my favorites. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Rally Portugal was cancelled, and from the 13 WRC events planned, only 7 were held. Even so, this year's release managed to pack it all in. It still is a simcade, but stays true to its formula, giving players a lot of new content with upgrades around every corner and on each course. Elements around the core rallying action could still do with some added finesse, but when the basic premise is so solid, those issues fade into the background. At last, Kiloton has delivered on the promise of authentic driving experience, and for a rally game, I think that is the single most important element. WRC 9 is a game that I'm still constantly going back to, despite the more recent outings and competition in what rally games are concerned. It brought the best rally career mode that I've ever seen in similar games until that moment, and despite a few rough edges, it also offered some of the most compelling rally driving I've come across during that generation's lifespan. As said, the COVID-19 pandemic was already well established and truly messed it up for the 10th edition of Kiloton's WRC game that arrived as usual in September to all major systems available by then: the PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the so hard to get brand new systems, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series. Ah, for the Switch also. Again, what a waste of time and resources. It celebrates the 50th anniversary of the World Rally Championship, offering multiple historical rally cars ranging from the classical Group B era to the modern World Rally cars. The historical events, however, were simply glorified time trials, nothing more. As for Rally Portugal, practically the same stuff from the previous game. I totally understand the difficulties that the developer had during the pandemic to put all this stuff together, but if players would only be getting a celebration of the 50th anniversary of WRC, that should have been delivered as a DLC for WRC 9, giving Kiloton more time to focus on their last year as rightful owner of the WRC license and deliver a truly unforgettable final game. WRC Generations came in November of 2022. It is the final WRC game to be developed by Kiloton, as in the meantime Codemasters and EA Sports took over the rights. As the new hybrid cars were implemented in this 2022 season, the game features brand new car models based on the Ford Puma Rally 1, Hyundai i20N Rally 1 and Toyota GR Yaris Rally 1. The anniversary mode, which was first introduced in the previous game, makes also its appearance. I really enjoy this last effort from Kiloton. It's the most complete package of rallying around today. Yes, because EA Sports WRC just feels sausages, if you know what I mean. More on that in just a moment. WRC Generations features a massive 21 rally locations, including all 13 of the 2022 season, plus a further 8 bonus rallies that aren't on the 2022 calendar, but even so, they've included them. That's why I've said that this is the most complete package around. Sadly, but as usual, the game forces us to begin the career in the WRC2 or WRC3 series. This makes perfect sense from a realism point of view, and for anybody who's picking up a game from this series for the first time, but it continues to make no sense from the perspective of someone who just did this same thing last year, and the year prior, and the year prior to that, etc. The game should be able to check our progress in previous titles of this franchise and place us immediately behind the wheel of those brand new hybrid monsters. That's practically the only downside to Generations, cause everything else is just perfect. Ah, Rally Portugal looks as stunning as ever.
120 and finish.
Lastly, we got EA Sports WRC, that tries so hard to be as authentic and realistic as possible that simply fails miserably. Just by taking a look and experiencing the Portuguese stages, you'll know what I'm trying to say. These are boring, repetitive and lifeless, not mentioning that this doesn't look at all like it's been held in Portugal. Not even Fafu and this jump they just randomly put in the middle of this stage has nothing to do with it. Not even close. The WRC games released 10 years prior looked more in par of what Portugal should look like than this piece of crap. Even so, if you have a set of wheel and pedals plus a VR set, it's a freaking amazing experience. Racing games are not what they used to be. Only titles like Baja Edge of Control or Dakar Desert Rally can get me hyped and make me come back to them over and over. As for rally racing, I'm always on the lookout for the latest offerings, being simulation or arcade, it doesn't matter, just bring them in. I will definitely play and get good old enjoyment and fun out of them. So guys, here you have it, the WRC inspired video games that featured Portugal as one of its main locations. Please leave your thoughts below and I will truly appreciate if you have other rally titles that I simply missed, ignored or forgot. And if you've enjoyed this video, you know the drill. Thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you all in my next video. Cheers!